Can one of the X-Men's founding members live a better life in the MCU than he did in Fox's X-Men universe? Given the state of Marvel and its ownership of cinematic rights only 5 years ago, the idea of the X-Men in the MCU would have seemed far-fetched. In this video, we'll see how the Marvel-Fox deal can bring the Iceman standalone movie to life. Disney made the right decision in acquiring 20th Century Fox and providing Marvel with the opportunity it required. However, despite the Mutants' return to Marvel being teased in 2019, the X-Men have yet to make an official appearance in the MCU. While it may be a slower release than many expected, Marvel is laying the groundwork for the X-Men to thrive. Several mutants have been introduced steadily throughout Phase 4, and more MCU mutants will appear soon. Miss Marvel, who is an Inhuman in the comics, and Namor, who is not only one of Marvel's first characters but also the first mutant, are among the most notable additions. The big questions for the future are when and how the X-Men will be formally incorporated and who will be among their initial ranks. Thankfully, Marvel has a plethora of fantastic X-Men to choose from, but some are more deserving than the others. But before we go any further, I have a small request for you. Please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. So, without further ado, let's delve into everything that we know about Iceman and his MCU appearance. First of all, we talk about why Fox's X-Men movies failed with Iceman and why Marvel has encountered similar challenges with the character. One of the original X-Men members deserves a second chance in the MCU. Iceman, played by Bobby Drake, made his debut alongside Professor X, Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Beast in 1963's The X-Men #1, but he hasn't received the same recognition as some of his teammates. Of course, many will recall Shawn Ashmore as Iceman from Fox's X-Men film franchise. He began as a supporting character in the 2000 film X-Men, but he rose to prominence in X2 and X-Men The Last Stand. He never seemed to get as much attention as some of his teammates. Iceman was never fully realized in the X-Men films. In retrospect, his story was overly focused on his relationship with Rogue, which was a disservice to the character. Iceman, like many other great characters, suffered from the problems that plagued the Fox X-Men franchise, such as narrative inconsistency and an overemphasis on certain heroes over others. However, they're not alone in their assessment of Iceman's potential. Iceman was only featured prominently in one episode of X-Men, the animated series, which is arguably the best depiction of the X-Men. Perhaps that will change in the upcoming X-Men 97 reboot, just as the MCU has the opportunity to correct Fox's mistakes. Is it essential for Iceman to be a part of the X-Men team in the MCU? The MCU must take the advantage of the opportunity and include Iceman as a member of the initial MCU team. Given the massive roster in the comics and the vastness of the MCU, this original team could be quite large. However, they should avoid overcommitting and instead focus on the X-Men's growth and development over the course of the next saga. They can start small, just like in the comics, and there's no better way to do that than with the original team, which includes Iceman. By doing so, they can make Iceman a more prominent character than he was in the Fox X-Men universe. Iceman should not be overlooked while Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast in particular receive as much attention as is humanly possible. This is the best approach because it allows the team to grow and evolve, and given his life away from the team, Iceman's inclusion in this can ensure a more thorough integration of mutants across the entire MCU. Not only does Iceman deserve more attention for narrative reasons, but the next films can also do justice to Iceman's powers and look in a way that X-Men The Last Stand only briefly touched on. I personally think that an Iceman movie is long overdue from Fox. What's your take on it? Are you all down for an icy adventure? I mean, I really think that he is a significant part of the X-Men team. Let me know your thoughts. Next up, can the MCU give Iceman the spotlight he deserves, surpassing Fox's previous portrayal of the character? On two fronts, the MCU can better showcase Iceman than Fox ever did. His abilities are incredible, far exceeding what many people expect from the X-Men films. They established the peak of his powers and his development as a hero in his ice form, but that doesn't even scratch the surface of his full potential. He is an Omega-level mutant like Storm, Jean Grey, Magneto, and Franklin Richards in the comics. His abilities extend far beyond freezing objects, creating skating platforms for travel, and encasing his body in ice. Iceman is so powerful, he has the ability to change the entire world's ecosystem and start a new ice age. Fortunately, with the likes of Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, and Thor already in the mix, the MCU is already the appropriate home to showcase the full extent and scope of Iceman's powers. The same is true for other Omega-level mutations. Overall, the MCU can ensure that the X-Men's vast potential is effectively utilized by combining Iceman's sheer power and global or cosmic threats with Wolverine's relatively lesser abilities and more street-level adventures. In addition, Iceman has a life outside of the X-Men. In fact, his most significant animated portrayal isn't even from an X-Men series. It is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, in which he teams up with Spider-Man and another mutant, Firestar. The MCU could easily showcase this friendship and team up in a major crossover event, but thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man is in need of new allies. It may be difficult to introduce Iceman quickly enough so that this trio appears in Spider-Man 4, but it would be a welcome sight. If done correctly, Iceman's time in the MCU could also see him join X-Men offshoots like X-Force, the Marauders, or even the Fantastic Four. Because he has access to the entire MCU, Iceman can flourish in ways that he never could in the X-Men-only universe. He shares the good fortune of many other mutants, from Wolverine joining Alpha Flight or the Avengers, to mutants like Darkstar or Justice, who would not have stood a chance if there were only X-Men to explore. And last, why is Iceman's inclusion in the MCU so important? Iceman's introduction and authentic portrayal are all the more important because he is one of Marvel's most well-known gay heroes. Iceman was revealed to be gay in 2015's all-new X-Men number 40 by Brian Michael Bendis and Andrea Sorrentino, and he later came out in Uncanny X-Men number 600 by Bendis and Chris Bachalo. This was a watershed moment not only for the X-Men but for Marvel as a whole, and the MCU must incorporate Iceman appropriately. In recent years, there has been a positive push for representation in the MCU, but it took until Eternals, the MCU's 26th film, for a gay relationship to be fleshed out on screen. Iceman represents one aspect of the X-Men's role as an allegory for various civil struggles in the real world. He can help to pave the way for other queer heroes, so the MCU should not be afraid to include him in their X-Men roster from the start. Well, I think with the current developments and the potential for the X-Men's integration into the MCU, it's possible that Iceman could receive a standalone movie in the upcoming years. The success of other solo superhero films in the MCU opens up exciting possibilities for Iceman to have his own spotlight and further expand the Marvel Universe. What do you guys think about Iceman's potential in the MCU? Do you think his inclusion is significant for the X-Men team and mutant representation in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Stay tuned as we continue to decipher the X-Men's future in the MCU and explore the possibilities that lie ahead.